Hello everyone, this is In-Game Arts with another boxing of the offline product game review. This is Knack 2 for the PlayStation 4, but being played and tested on my PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, the physical copy here is just the base vanilla version of the game, so the on-disc version is 1.0. Now sadly there was an update available. This update size was 20 megabytes big and will take you to version 1.0.1. Since the time making this video. Now, like always, I play all my games completely offline with an unregistered account, and I didn't experience any massive game-breaking bugs or issues. The game ran perfectly smooth to begin and end with little to no noteworthy issues. And as well, I was unlocking trophies with my unregistered account. Now, this isn't my first time playing Knack 2. I actually played it long ago, back on PlayStation 4, and I was more than happy to run through the game again on my PlayStation 5. And I was more than happy to see the game still work perfectly smooth to begin and end, even on PlayStation 5. Now, as I said, there was little to no issues, but I did have some minor little hiccups and oddities here and there. Some of it was just mostly the game design aspects, but overall the game worked perfectly fine to begin and end, which I'm extremely happy to say. I know Knack, the series of 1 and 2, has always been contentious for some people. Personally, me, I have always loved the Knack games. And Knack 2 is no different, and frankly, Knack 2 is overall a much better game than the first game. But personally me, I still have a fondness and attachment to the first game. Knack 2 just basically improves upon everything of the first game, allowing more unlockables, a lot more content, a longer experience, as well as unlocking more challenges, as well as like a new game plus. I mean, the original game had a new game plus, but this has like skills and stuff like that you can unlock. It has actually like I was going to say tech tree, but skill tree system in the game. It's just got a lot more fleshed out experience compared to the original game, and as well as the game, while the first one did support a co-op two-player mode gameplay, the sequel here does still have the two-player co-op mode. It's just a little bit more integrated into the experience, a little bit better compared to the original game. Now, let's go ahead and go right into it. I do want to point out the game does run at 60 frames per second and gameplay wise. Now, you can change this if you prefer to run the game at 30 frames per second, which I'm always happy to have options. But I can't quite remember, but you might want to check it. I think the game automatically starts at 60 frames per second, but you might want to go to the options and double check this. But do keep in mind, certain events as well as certain cutscenes, the frame rate always drops down to 30 frames per second. So that's a little jarring, a little disappointing that in gameplay wise it runs steadily smooth at 60 frames per second, but cutscenes and certain little events that happens, it runs at 30 frames per second. Not the biggest of a deal because it's not actually gameplay, you're just watching the footage, but it could be a little jarring considering how smooth the game is and all of a sudden now you're watching something at 30 frames per second. Now the next one, it might frustrate some people. Back in the past, it was a lot of games had it, but Knack 2 has QTEs, and sadly they're not implemented the greatest. Basically, they're in cutscenes, which is fine. I prefer them in cutscenes to a certain degree. I actually kind of prefer them not in cutscenes, but they did it pretty good in this one where it's not like randomly just throws a QTE at you, where they'll generally prepare you and let you know, hey, here's a QTE moment or moment in the game. But they're not too hard, really forgiving, but if you fail one, all of them are just instant lose. There's no like losing just to see what happens at a different event. No, if you miss up any of them, it instantly lose and you have to restart the whole QTE event again. Some people really hate QTEs. It's not implemented awfully in this game. It's just I prefer QTEs more in normal gameplay because I can like issue out the QTE. Let's say like God of War, the classic, where you grapple someone, you can do a couple buttons to execute this enemy. I'm not the biggest fan of them in cutscenes because generally in cutscenes I like to just put down the controller and watch the event, and then have to hold my controller and be prepared if a QTE pops up. But this one isn't as outrageous as other games where they'll just randomly throw a QTE at you. They generally try to prepare you that, hey, this is going to be a sequence of QTEs at this moment, which is great. They did it pretty good. Now, there are times that the game does function with a fixed camera angle, which is overall, I didn't mind it. I actually really enjoy fixed camera angles. It made me remind me of classic God of War, which Knack, both 1 and 2, almost feel like a more kid-friendly version of God of War in terms of the fixed camera angle, the dodging, the hacking and slashing by just beat them up and everything. But there are times where enemies can be off screen and it can be shooting projectiles, and since you can't see them, they could be hitting you and you can't be ready for it. So a little bit of a disappointment in that is that they don't prepare the camera in the right area or put the enemies who shoot projectiles always in front of you so you can always see that projectile coming. Sometimes they can be off screen and you could be randomly hit in the back by some blaster or something like that. I did have twice, though, when I did like a jump or some little interaction on top of like a rock or some kind of platform, and Knack got stuck into in a falling animation and I couldn't move or get out of the way. Thankfully, both times it happened, I just hit the button that allows me to shrink and it immediately fixed itself, and then I could just reform myself back into big mode and be able to fix the issue. So it didn't permanently stuck me, but it maybe could happen in your experience. But if it does, try to shrink yourself down. I think it's L1 button to do that. But and then see if that would fix it if you get stuck. It only happened twice, so I just wanted to let you know. Next one is that the game does have some minor explorations, but there are moments where you can like go the correct path and then you can't backtrack. Because like the game will have a gate drop behind you or something like that. And you didn't fully explore everything because you accidentally went the right way. So just be very mindful of that. You could accidentally go the right path and not want to and then get locked out. I've always been frustrated with that, especially getting the locked out. Like, this doesn't feel like the correct path, and you keep going, and all of a sudden a cutscene happens. And it's like, oh man, now you can't backtrack. So just letting you know that. Next up, Knack's auto-locking system, where there's no locking in the game, where you have to like push a button to lock on. Knack will automatically lock on to a person or an object. There's a few times where he will like look at a different enemy than what I'm facing and punch that other enemy that I don't want him to hit. Or sometimes there's a sunstone right by an enemy, and Knack will punch the sunstone instead of punching the enemy. This annoyed me a good number of times, where the knock-on, for some reason, prioritized sunstones a lot more than the enemy. Thankfully, there is an ability where you can like jump and slam on the ground. It breaks all sunstones at a certain radius. I highly recommend you, before you go into battle, because there's a few times you can tell when you're about to go into a battle, make sure to jump and slam on the ground to destroy all the sunstones around. Because then you have to unlock this ability, but try to get that, because then you get frustrated having Knack randomly swing at a sunstone than the enemy you're trying to attack. Next up is that despite the game being on normal difficulty, it's not an easy game. Well, I'm not going to say the game's super hard like a Dark Souls or anything like that, or Bloodborne, but if you get careless or let your guard down, the game will kick your butt, especially on later difficulties, especially if you get your guard down and think it's a kid's game. It is fairly challenging, even on normal difficulty, which took me a little bit surprised. Clearly, it's been a while since I've played Knack, and I love the original game because I remember feeling the same way, that the game felt surprisingly difficult if you let your guard down, which is surprising for such a kid-friendly game. And it's just, yeah, may not be the most approachable for a kid, but if you play maybe co-op, you could be dad or the mom or whether older brother or whatever, older sister, can be controlling the main character, where the son or little brother or little sister could be the co-op partner, which can make the experience probably a little bit better for a younger audience, since the difficulty can wrap up quite significantly in certain moments. And that's about it. That's my total experience of the game. Everything else I'm going to really talk about is about my love for Knack, really. I love Knack. I have played these games. I love the aesthetic. I love the gameplay. And personally, I had way more fun playing this than Astrobot. I actually, as I beat this game, I had unlocked New Game Plus, and frankly, I wanted to run through the game again on higher difficulty. I love Knack. I do not, to this day, understand why Knack was completely laughed at or disregarded when it first launched. I played like 120 hours of the first Knack game, just to give you an idea. Now, I love Knack. Now, personally, I still like the first one a little bit more than the second one here, and that's because the game is bad. It's overall a better game compared to the first game, but the story-wise, it feels like a little bit of a repeat of the same story from the first one, and that is disappointing because the game does kind of leave a little bit of a cliffhanger at the ending of the second one here, and it kind of hints at it maybe a really good story or a good beat moment in the game for a third one, but sadly we'll probably never have that again. We probably won't ever get a Knack 3, and that's really frustrating and disappointing. I personally will probably never be able to forgive the gaming community or gaming industry for letting amazing series like Knack and Knack 2 get pushed to the wayside because people's obsession of nostalgia wanting Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank or Sly Cooper. While I do love those games, I will personally say I probably like Knack more than like Jack and Dexter or Sly and Cooper, or might even say Ratchet and Clank. Now there are a few Ratchet and Clank games I really love, but Knack, I've played both 1 and 2, and I just enjoyed every single time I played it, and I was always eager to play it again right as I got done beating it. It's just the second one, it felt like I was retelling the exact same story from the first one and certain beats and stuff like that. I don't want to get into spoilers and stuff like that, but if you played the first one, you jump to the second one, it feels like you're just basically retreading the same steps, and to certain degrees. You're definitely going to wish there was a third one, because the third one looked like it was going to be set up to be a way more deeper, richer, and interesting story. But overall, the gameplay was fluid, it was very rewarding, it wasn't like some hack and slash game we had to memorize a button combinations to be able to do something like Devil May Cry or something like that. It was just classic God of War game. That's why I love the original God of Wars. That's why some people say it's like square, square, triangle. I'm perfectly fine with that, because all this game was just pushing square, 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 and I was perfectly fine with that. And if you play the game on higher difficulties or even a normal difficulty, you know you can't just push square, square, square to win, because the enemy will defeat you really quickly if you just spam the attack button. In the end, I had a lot of fun. This is still one of my most favorite games I play on PlayStation 4. I highly recommend it, obviously. I just wish, man, it just more and more disappoints me that we're not going to get a third one. And frankly, it just more and more frustrates me. Like, man, Astrobot is like way more popular. While I do agree Astrobot is a lot more charming, because then it's got all the nostalgia, bringing all the references of characters, but that doesn't make a good game. Astrobot isn't really that great of a gameplay experience. It is a great experience if you're a fan of franchises and the good music and stuff like that. That's non-deniable. Knack is a better game. It's a better gameplay mechanics. It's got a lot more better progression. And frankly, while at moments I will say even a better mascot character by design-wise, but I do agree Astro is way cuter, because just the overall aesthetic of that character. But in the end, this is just me rambling and ranting. It's frustrating that we won't get an Act 3. I love this game. I love the first one, and I'll gladly replay this game all over again compared to I play Astrobot again. I don't know if I'll ever. And guess what? Knack 2 and Knack 1, the right joystick button works. It didn't need an update to make the right joystick work in the game. I will never forgive that. Man, if you don't know, Team Asobi released Astrobot without fully supporting the right joystick. It was an update later. So, in the end of the day, I highly recommend picking up Knack 2. I'll provide links in the description if you're interested in a copy. And thank you all so much for watching. Obviously, it's well worth to pick it up. So, again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next unboxing video. Bye-bye!